Let me be clear that this isn't an excuse, but rather a way to share with you that I was a broken, sick, selfish, and terrified person who was, at the time, incapable of giving. I used alcohol to escape life's problems because it was the only thing I knew at the time that could give me the relief from the constant, in parentheses, is fear/rejection/brokenness, whatever you want to say that plagued you in the midst of your addiction.
Welcome to Amy Liz Harrison's podcast, Eternally Amy, a mum of eight's journey from jail to joy, a Gen Xer who overcame her struggle with alcohol to become a best-selling author and mental health advocate. She shares stories of hope and offers ideas for others struggling with mental health challenges. One thing is for sure, you'll leave with something to chew on. And now, here's your host, Amy Liz Harrison.
Greetings, compadres. I'm in the greenhouse of joy again for 12 steps for anyone who wants them. We're on step 9, and I want you to see my shirt. So if you are watching this instead of listening, it is just about the best Golden Girls shirt ever. It says Squad, and it's like a band pick. We've got Dorothy, and we've got Rose, and we've got Sophia and Blanche in the back, and they're like sitting kind of like Breakfast Club style on a stoop, because I don't really know, but I love it. Anyway, I had to get that out of the way first. So in step 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. I played a little tiny clip of that song, The Reason, by Hoobastank. Yes, Hoobastank is their name, and it starts out, I'm not a perfect person, right? You've heard it, maybe. Anyway, so every time I hear that song, I think of steps 8 and 9. And essentially what recovery does, or did for me, is it did help me to want to rectify my past eventually. At the beginning, I was kind of like, look, let's just kind of let bygones be bygones. I think we can pretty much just put that stuff in like the back of the like most hoarder-ish closet I have and leave it there. But really, the problem is I still knew it was there. And so as I continued to go through the process of the steps, it became clear to me that no, I wanted to live in like true peace. And I wanted to have freedom. And for me, what that looked like was going through that crap and doing what I could to get rid of it. And that involved making amends. And so that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about step 9. Now, remember that the whole point of this series, it's a once a month series, not a once. It's a once a month series. And what it's supposed to do is, I'm going to share a little bit about each step and what it was like when I went through it and what it's like now when I go through it. But it can be like the 12 steps, if you don't have any background with the 12 steps, they're really applicable to any kind of habit, any kind of hang up in your life that you're just really trying to get over. Someone shared with me the other day that they're trying to get over negative thinking, which is awesome and huge. And also kind of one of those things that generally does kind of stick around over a lifetime because we're human. And so it's a constant dance. But really, That's how the step work is. For me, I still think of people from my past who I could probably make an amends to. Or if I see them on the street, and I'll think like, yeah, there's something there. That does happen to me from time to time. But generally, I'm able to live at peace with my fellows most days. And I'm really quick to realize when I need to make an amends. And I just make that amends usually pretty quickly. And then I move on with my life, because I don't like a lot of cumbersome baggage weighing me down. All that does is convince me that I'm some kind of piece of crap and I need to, I don't know, just get rid of all of the things in my life that could potentially cause me to need to make an amends, which is basically people, right? And so that's never good. Like, I can't live without people. But I will tell you that my isolation, my tendencies to want to just turn into an introvert, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with introverts. I am an introvert by nature, though people think I'm an extrovert because of my personality. But I want to just isolate in like a kind of a turtle shell and not talk it to people, not talk it out, not talk through it. Whatever I'm going through, I will tend to just want to just kind of clam up. And what happens is, as a result of that, my dark thoughts grow in that space, in that loneliness, in that isolation. Okay. And then I start to believe them as never good. So, really, the best thing for me to do, and this is just based on years of living this way and living this experience of the 12 steps, is just to really wear life like a loose garment, right? Just one of those kind of Jesus robes. And I'm not implying that I'm Jesus like or anything like that, but just to not get too attached to any false narrative that may present itself in my head. And I can do that by listening to that inner spirit when I'm in a conversation or in a circumstance where I'm like, you know what? I can see my part in this and I'm going to go ahead and make an amends. That's kind of for later. When we're talking about early sobriety and the 9th step, it's totally different. You want to go over your 8th step list with your sponsor. You want to attend to each one of those instances or people that you listed with the help of a sponsor, so that that sponsor can help you decide what you should do about each individual circumstance, right? Because as much as, a 12-step saying that is prevalent is, we're not terminally unique. That is true. But at the same time, we do have some individual circumstances that may need to be tailored or adjusted a little bit. And that is where a sponsor comes into play. And it's pretty essential that we engage the help of a sponsor to help us understand what we should do. Because especially me in early sobriety, my mind was not a neighborhood that you wanted to go into alone. Need a partner, because my mind was telling me all kinds of crazy things like, you don't really owe that person an amends, trying to rationalize everything away and justify everything. And that's what the disease of alcoholism does, or substance use disorder, alcohol use disorder, whatever you want to call it. So, just a reminder as we go through this series, 12 steps for anyone who wants them. I endorse 12-step programs. They do not endorse me. Okay. And so the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous or the 12 and 12 or any other literature from any 12-step program look, when I read that to you, it has to stay intact. That's what the General Service Office in New York has asked. So any parallel that I draw from those is just my experience. It's just things that I have learned, but the readings need to stay intact. So the readings will say things like Alcoholics Anonymous or it will reference alcohol. So you just have to substitute whatever it is that you're dealing with whenever you hear me say alcohol. Okay. Because the idea is with addiction, which I found to be true, it is the same, is the same, is the same, right? It's anything that encumbers us and holds us captive. Okay. And when I quit drinking, all of a sudden I realized how true that was. It was like, oh my gosh, now I'm eating Oreos to deal with my feelings, or now I'm buying things on Amazon in a blackout at night. And I don't even remember what this thing was for when it arrives, right? I mean, I'm assuming that's what I've heard happens. Haven't really ever done that. Just kidding. Of course I have. So there are 12 months in a year. There's a step for every month. And so January being the first month was all about powerlessness. Second month was about coming to believe in a power greater than ourselves. Third month was about turning our will and our life over to the care of God as we understand God, and so on and so forth. And so now we're in the 9th month. And the 9th month is all about amends. So speaking of this, what I'm going to do is read you guys a little bit of step 9 from the 12 and 12. Now remember, when Bill Wilson took the steps, he took the steps boom, 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 really quick, with Ebby in his kitchen for the first time. And Ebby was his old schoolmate who he used to drink with, who showed up one day when Bill was drinking gin in his kitchen. And Ebby was sober and shared that he had gotten sober through religion. So yes, the 12 steps do have an origination in religious roots, but they have really become secularized. If you're looking for a religious program to take you through the 12 steps, they have those available too. All you have to do is look it up. But in this case, this is Alcoholics Anonymous that I am talking about in terms of a program that uses this book, the 12 and 12. But what I'm trying to say is that the steps are very universal. They're universal and can be applied to a myriad of things. And this is really the power behind the 12 steps, is they're not meant to be an in-your-face, turn or burn religious experience. They're meant to be an experience that causes a spiritual awakening, that is an open-minded spiritual awakening, that is not offensive to anybody's religion or non-religious beliefs. That is the hope, that is the spirit of the 12 steps as I understand them. So step 9, this is page 83 of the 12 and 12. May direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. Okay, and the reading says, good judgment, a careful sense of timing, courage, and prudence. These are the qualities we shall need when we take step 9. After we had made the list of people we had harmed, remember that was in step 8, have reflected carefully on each instance, and have tried to possess ourselves of the right attitude in which to proceed, we will see that making of direct amends divides those we should approach into several classes. We talked a little bit about this last month. There will be those who ought to be dealt with just as soon as we become reasonably confident that we can maintain our sobriety. There will be those to whom we can make only partial restitution, lest complete disclosures do them or others more harm than good. There will be other cases where action ought to be deferred, and still others in which, by the very nature of the situation, we shall never be able to make direct personal contact at all. And so, this is what I mean by we're not really terminally unique sometimes in these situations. And all that terminally unique thing means is like, oh, it's an attitude like, oh, my life is so hard, or I've messed so many things up, you wouldn't understand. It's kind of that attitude. So it's like, no, we all have done horrible things in the midst of our disease. Like, we are united in that fact. And though those things that we did may have differed, we all caused horrible wreckage. And by that wreckage, we are united in this quest, right? To do the best we can to clean it up. Is it always going to be perfect and look amazing afterwards and be the same way that we go about cleaning it up? No. Okay. It's going to be different depending on what sponsor you have, depending on how you approach what the amends process looks like to you, how specific you're going to get, on how vague you might need to keep it. Maybe you need to make an amends to a person who has passed. There are all kinds of different ways that amends are done. So hear me when I say that this is not a one-size-fits-all exercise, in my opinion. What this is a really carefully tailored exercise that will have the spirit and the theme of making amends. There are some things that you really can't make an amends for because it was just like a thought pattern or a destructive attitude that may have corroded somebody else's strategy. Or, I mean, I'm kind of like pulling, different concepts in here. But what I'm saying is there will be different ways of making your amends, and that is okay. Just go over it with a sponsor. Back to the reading. Most of us begin making certain kinds of direct amends from the day we join AA. The moment we tell our families that we are really going to try the program, the process has begun. In this area, there are seldom any questions of timing or caution. We want to come in the door shouting good news. After coming home from our first meeting, or perhaps after we have finished reading the book Alcoholics Anonymous, we usually want to sit down with some member of the family and readily admit the damage we have done by our drinking. Almost always, we want to go further and admit other defects that have made us hard to live with. This will be a very different occasion, and in sharp contrast with those hangover mornings when we alternated between reviling ourselves and blaming the family and everyone else for our troubles. At this first setting, it is necessary only that we make a general admission of our defects. It may be unwise at this stage to rehash certain harrowing episodes. Good judgment will suggest that we ought to take our time. While we may be quite willing to reveal the very worst, we must be sure to remember that we cannot buy our own peace of mind at the expense of others. What that all means is when we first get sober, a lot of times we'll come home, we'll be on what is referred to as a pink cloud. And this is kind of your first exciting hope that maybe your life will get different, right? Possibly you will be able to get over this hopeless state of mind and being, and won't walk around hating yourself anymore. Maybe you'll be, sorry, I am teetering on a little TV tray thing here, and it's a little bit dicey. Maybe you just want to rush in and just make all these apologies. But really, and I get that, and I did sort of that same thing. I was like, oh my gosh, it's that realization that once you're sober and you start feeling again, and you can like look back and kind of see, wow, I really harmed a lot of people with my behavior. And you want to just fix it. You want to fix it now. But the steps are the way they are, in the order that they are in, for a reason, right? And so it is fine to make a general, oh my goodness, I have so much work to do. I'm really giving this a go. I really can see how difficult it must have been for you to live with me, although I really don't have the perspective of all the harm I caused you. I'm beginning to see how this affected you, because previously I thought I was only harming myself, right? So keeping things really light and general like that is okay. But really, in my personal opinion, the best thing to do when newly sober and being tempted to make amends to people is to just keep working. Just keep meeting with your sponsor, keep going to meetings, and have those family members or those close to you see that you are taking action in your program to change. Because for many of us, for long enough, we gave lip service to all kinds of things only to get drunk or start using or whatever, like a week later. And so they have learned not to trust us, right? As they shouldn't. I mean, really, truly, because addiction is so powerful. Of course, they want to give us the benefit of the doubt. But when we have stepped on their toes so many times, seemingly not on purpose, right? It's not like that's what we set out to do. It just takes time to rebuild trust. You know this if you're a parent, right? And you have like a teenager and you caught them in a lie or whatever, that that's how this goes. And so that's kind of what this whole passage is warning against, is rushing in, making amends to everybody really quick, and then, being super on fire for this, pink cloud of sobriety, and then have it just kind of, sort of peter out really quick. We don't want to put people through that again. So this last part that I read, good judgment will suggest that we ought to take our time. While we may be quite willing to reveal the very worst, we must remember that we cannot buy our own peace of mind at the expense of others. That is why I'm going to drop this little chestnut on you. By and large, for me personally, I prefer the amends process to be done in written form. Now, that is not the way that everyone does it. If you ask 10 sponsors, you will probably get 10 different opinions. But this is how I like to do it, and I'm going to tell you why. Basically, I feel that a face-to-face appointment with somebody who may not want to see me ever again is a bad idea. I feel like it is a selfish idea. And this is for me, okay? I feel that that is putting the person in a very uncomfortable position where they then feel obligated to forgive me on the spot or tell me it's okay when it's not. And I feel like a letter that is very direct gives them an opportunity to read it or not read it and to process it. And they're not immediately put on stage with a big spotlight shining on them. Hey, I'm sorry. Like, now it's your turn. You're going to say you forgive me, right? That's what I want to avoid. I feel it is more respectful to give somebody a letter, and they will reach out to me if they would like to talk about it. Again, that is my personal opinion. So I mentioned this last time, some people get on airplanes. I mean, they make this like an international, worldwide amends tour, and that's great. I have friends who have gone to shopping malls and met with managers in stores and asked them to forgive them for shoplifting, all kinds of stuff. And so I feel if I hand somebody a letter, I'm saying, here you go. I'm admitting what I've done that I can see, and I'm going to give you a chance to process this on your own time. I feel strongly like if you wound someone, the last thing they want to do probably is hear from you in person. You're calling them on the phone, getting all up in their grill. And I personally have seen this approach cause more damage than a letter. Which is another reason I kind of think for me it is selfish to, resist the urge to run out and try to make things better is a practice in self-control, in my opinion, which is something that I needed when I first got here, for sure. Still need it, but in these kind of situations, I need it less. So in my opinion, a letter is more of a gentle healing balm. There are lots of people who would disagree with me, and that is okay. That is the health of 12-step programs, is you do not have to do things the way that I do things. You have full agency to talk it through with your sponsor or a trusted friend or clergy member, and make your own decisions on how to handle these things. So I'm going to give you 2 examples from my own life, and then I'm going to read you a sample letter that I generally use. It's a skeleton letter that I tailor for the person or the circumstance. Okay. So the first person this is a friend that I have had for many, many years. And I was a kid when we met. And this friend I completely ditched come about 5th or 6th grade, and decided that I wanted to expand my friendship circles. She wasn't cool enough for me anymore. Best part of this whole story is that the joke was on me, because by the time we got to high school, look, she became a cheerleader. She was super popular. I was not. I was literally the kid sitting in the breezeway, eating lunch by myself, nerdy with my Bible open, just trying to get through that uncomfortable season, hanging out with the choir heads after school. It backfired, right? So the joke was on me. It really was karma. Anyway, I made an amends to that friend, And I did it, I'm going to say it was originally through like Facebook Messenger or something like that. And that friend said, hey, thank you. I had forgotten about some of that stuff because I got really specific. And she said, that's a wound that I had kind of forgotten was there. Thank you for providing a little bit of healing over it, or something like that. It was kind of short and sweet and to the point. Same person, a few years later, I approached that person, and basically I had a favor to ask that person. And we had been talking a little bit here and there between when I made the amends and when I had the favor to ask. And it wasn't like, can I borrow $1 million? Okay. It was in my opinion, a very small favor, having to do with, book writing. And it was, hey, would you consider writing this little thing for me about this? And I'm finally, got around to like telling my story in a book. And this friend was like, no, I don't want anything to do with it. And you know what? That hurt. That hurt. But it was what it was. And I respected it because, first of all, I thought we were good. So that was a learning for me. No, we were not good. In fact, when I opened up that wound a few years prior to my ask for this piece of little writing, it had reopened it for her. And so, turns out that was an amends that did not go as well as I thought it did. And that is one way that amends can go. And you know what? She had every right to feel that way. When you damage someone and you wound them, they get to feel however they want to feel about it. And to this day, that relationship is severed. It's done. I don't contact her anymore. I respect her. I respect the way she feels. I have tried to make amends a few years back, right? And it didn't work. If you want to call that not working, right? If you're going to put a label on it. But the truth of the matter is, it gives me a story. It gives me an example of something to share with you that is a true happening from my life, and a true example of when an amends didn't go like I had hoped. However, when I made my amends to my husband and my kids, my formal amends, I wrote letters to each of them individually. Now, this is a long time ago. This is in my first year of sobriety. So this is like 2011. Yeah. Yeah, late 2011. It might have been the beginning of 2012 because it was snowing. That much I know. And it was a day off of school. My kids were in elementary school. And I brought them each up to the room, my bedroom. I sat them down. I read them a letter out loud. And I tried to do the same with my husband. But he said, I don't want a formal amends. I just want you to keep on this path. I just want you to live differently. That is a common response to an amends, I have found, just from years and years of sitting in meetings and talking about the amends process. A lot of people don't want to revisit the past. They just want you to live differently in the future. My kids were super gracious totally just listened to the letter. They were young. I'm not sure they even really understood what I was doing by this amends process. But kids are resilient and they love their parents. And they just totally loved on me and gave me the benefit of the doubt. And so those were some examples of when I personally felt like that was a great amends that went well, in quotes, went well, if you will. But really, what I have learned in this process, and I'll wrap it up with this, and then I'm going to read you that sample letter, and I can also attach it if you want to use it. Really, what I've learned is that I don't know what is a good amends, what is a bad amends, what is anything anymore, because my perspective that something went well, clearly, as demonstrated in the first example I gave my friend, turns out, nope, that person was not healed, or I had no right to go back and ask that person to write something for me for my book. And that's totally, completely fine. And I have maybe way misread that situation. Okay. And also the ones that I thought, didn't go very well, probably went very well. Some of the people that I made amends to were older and were not used to anybody coming to them and apologizing for anything. And I think that it probably had a bigger impact on those people than I ever realized. So I can't judge it. I don't know what I'm doing. You know what I mean? I mean, I know what I'm doing, but I can't be the one to label it good, bad. It just is what it is. I hope that that makes some kind of sense. Most important thing, I know I've said it, I'll say it again, is go over your list from your 8th step with your sponsor prior to just jumping in this 9th step like swimming pool. Okay, so here is a sample amends letter. And this is one that I give to my sponsees to just kind of help invite their own thoughts and their own writing process to get started. They can use this one, but you're going to have to like tailor it for your own situation is what I tell them. And that's what I've done. So this is kind of just a framework. Okay, it says, dear name of person. It may not be a welcome surprise to hear from me, and for that, I'm sorry. However, I am sober now and have been since, and you put the date. I'm in a 12-step recovery program, and part of my becoming a better contributor to society is setting right the harms I have caused in my active alcoholism or addiction, whatever. Of course, in contemplating this, you came to mind as someone I hurt. I'm writing to make a formal amends to you and to do what I can to set right the harms I have caused. I have chosen to type rather than call, reach out in person, or otherwise for a couple reasons. First, because I don't believe in forcing an apology or an amends on you when you may not be ready or even want to hear from me at all. Second, because I want you to have something tangible that you can look at later if you need or want a reminder of exactly what I said. I'm hoping I have made the right choice that honors you. At a high level, I want you to know that I take full responsibility for being, and then in parentheses, I have different keywords: selfish, arrogant, uncaring, irresponsible, etc. You can fill in those sections with whatever words apply. At a more detailed level, I am incredibly remorseful and saddened when I reflect specifically on, and then in parentheses, it says, list all of the specific offenses toward them here, as many as you can remember. For example, the time I left you at the concert with no ride home, or cheating on you, or stealing the cash out of your suitcase, etc., right? All the specific things that you remember. I'm certain deep in my heart there are additional harms that I have caused you, of which I may be unaware. I want you to know that you deserved better. You deserved a, in parentheses, friend slash spouse slash relative, etc., who honored you and treated you with, again, in parentheses, you're going to list attributes here. For example, basic human love and respect, care, empathy, whatever words come to mind. Let me be clear that this isn't an excuse, but rather a way to share with you that I was a broken, sick, selfish, and terrified person who was, at the time, incapable of giving. I used alcohol to escape life's problems because it was the only thing I knew at the time that could give me the relief from the constant, in parentheses, is fear slash rejection slash brokenness, whatever you want to say that plagued you in the midst of your addiction. I felt so relief from the constant fear, rejection, brokenness, etc. that I felt. I am so sorry that you were caught in the wake of my issues and that you were one of the recipients of the harms I caused. I want you to also be the recipient of my expressions of remorse and regret. Today, I am living differently. I am actively pursuing the path of recovery to become the highest version of myself and to move continuously from being a taker to a giver. It's my goal for you to know that I regret my behavior toward you. And my hope is that my memory of the instances listed here will serve the springboard to stay sober and continue in my recovery program. Sorry, that's supposed to say serve as the springboard to stay sober and continue in my recovery program. Last paragraph. You are worthy and deserving of, parentheses, list the attributes here. For example, love, common courtesy, respect, and decency. And then I usually put their name there again, Janice, right? I hope that you'll accept my heartfelt regret for these and the unlisted harms that I did to you. But it's my aim to clean up my side of the street, and I expect nothing back from you. If by any chance you would like to discuss this further, please feel free to let me know. And in closing, it says, if I can ever be of any service to you as a friend, I would be honored. If not, I wish you well, I wish you light, and I wish you all the highest good. Sincerely, me, name of person, name of self. So In my opinion, the most important part of all of that is it's my aim to clean up my side of the street, and I expect nothing back from you. And that's where I feel like I went wrong with the friend that I mentioned earlier. That was my example. Is when I asked her a favor, no matter in my head, I'm like thinking it was small. But even sitting here now after reading this letter, I'm like, yeah, man, I overstepped my boundaries. I shouldn't have even ever reached out. I should have allowed her to reach out to me when and if she ever was ready. I falsely assumed we were good when we weren't. But I did what I could. I made the amends. And really, I should have just waited for her to call the shots after that and not assumed like, hey, we're besties. I mean, I didn't assume that, but it's all living. It's living and learning. It's being human and learning to operate in peace with other human beings, right? That's what we're doing here to become positive, contributing members of society. I hope you've gotten something out of this 9th step, 12 steps for everyone or anyone who wants them. And I wish you all the best. Remember to be kind, rewind. Thank you for the honor of your time, and just take what you like and leave the rest behind. Squad.
Thank you so much for listening to Eternally Amy, a mum of eight's journey from jail to joy. Amy Liz Harrison is a best-selling author, speaker, 12-step coach, meditation teacher, and recovery advocate. To find out more, please visit amylizharrison.com. You can keep up with Amy on all platforms by following @AmyLizHarrison. Please subscribe and review this podcast. It means so much to us if you do.